Hello, job seekers. Melanie here with CGL Recruiting, and we are in the middle of interview boot camp. This is session number 4. And for interview boot camp, remember, we got all of these interview questions from the HR survey that we did, asking HR professionals what are some of the most common interview questions that you ask that you feel are important. And there were a ton, and we skinnied them down to try and get to pulling out ones that were duplicates to get you as many of these as we could. Remember, practice makes perfect. So we're trying to break this down into very small increments that you can every day listen to some of these and get more exposure to some of these interview questions, and where needed, actually get some time to prepare in advance. I'm going to cover the questions with you. I'm going to cover what they're looking for and what are some of your best ways to answer each and every one of these questions. Now, remember, if you haven't subscribed yet, you can do that now. It is free. Just hit that subscribe button and ring that bell for notifications, and it will tell you every time that we post another one of these videos and every time we have another one of our free events where we do our job seeker Q&A and answer all of your questions. Now, in the essence of being respectful of your time, I'm going to be covering these very quickly again. Please, if you have comments, please put it down below. We do our best to get to every one of them, or join us for one of our job seeker Q&A events. All right, let's take some time now and look at the questions that were all focused around getting to know you. So our first question that we're going to take a look at today is, this was a question that came up from tons of the HR people, which is, give me your elevator pitch or tell me your story. Now, when you're doing this, they're trying to understand your path or your resume. And most times they have your resume out in front of them, especially if you're doing a phone interview. They're probably somebody's busy taking notes on it. They're wanting to follow it and understand your progression and growth in your career industry. So as you're doing this, it is best to follow a reverse chronological. So start with how you got into your field or how you got into your industry up to where you are today. Now, if you are somebody that feels like, I've got 30 years experience, and the first 15, I was kind of focused in a different career before I got to here, that's okay. You can choose to decide when you start, but know that most times they're looking at your resume. And anytime you skip something that's on your resume when you're doing this tell me your story, it's going to be a problem, because they're going to say, well, what about this one here? You didn't mention it. They're going to think you skipped it for a reason. Now, your elevator pitch is much, much shorter, right? This is 30 seconds where you're trying to give them a very quick overlying of what you do. It's very good for some things, not as great for interviews. Either way, whether it's your elevator pitch or tell your story, what they're not looking for you to do is say, I moved in 2000 from this role to this role. In 2004, I moved from this role to this role. Tell them about what you accomplished in each role. Tell them about what you did that was amazing in each of those roles. Now, you should have done a lot of research already on the company and the job description, and you should know a lot about them. So in this case, try to, before you walk in that interview, think about accomplishments or examples for each one of the jobs that somehow relate to the position you're applying for. If in your past you've been a project manager and also an engineer, and the position that you're applying for is a project manager, focus on accomplishments that are more in alignment with project management. The more you connect the dots for them on what you're saying and what's on your resume and what's on their job description and their needs as a company, the better you're going to be. Okay, let's go on to our next one, which is, what was your GPA in college? Now, this is a very common getting to know you question if you are a fresher or somebody who's more brand new to the market. Sometimes you'll even have somebody ask you back a ways. And this is one of those questions that can trip people up. If you are within 5 years of your graduation date and you do not know your GPA, you need to find it out. Because if you're 2 years out and you say, I really don't remember what my GPA is, they're going to think you're not telling the truth, and therefore you had a really bad GPA, or they're going to think you weren't focused on the details. You need to know what your GPA is. Now, life happens. let's say you had a GPA that was less than stellar. What I recommend you do is look to see, that may be your overarching GPA, but what was your GPA in your major? And if you can find, like, perhaps you had a 2.8 in your overarching GPA, but in your major you had a 3.2. It is okay when you're asked this question to say, well, my overall GPA was a little bit lower. I didn't do as good as I wanted to on some of my whatever classes, but my GPA in my profession was a 3.2. I found I really loved these classes. So you're focusing as quick as you can on something positive. Let's keep going with the next question, which is, and there's the next like three are kind of very similar. So let me go through all of them. It's, why do you have a gap on your resume? Or why did you leave each of your last positions? Tell me about how you've moved from position to position over the course of your career. Now, all of these are looking for a couple of different things. One is they are looking for a fatal flaw. Were you terminated from a position? Now, they used to just come right out and ask you, have you ever been fired or asked to resign from a position? And if that's the case, they do want to know that. And they're immediately, if you say yes, going to say, tell me why. And they're going to try and see if they're okay with your reasoning and what happened. If you are not sure if you were terminated for cause or for not, we have a video that covers that. It's a huge, huge speed bump that a lot of candidates trip over. They say, yes, I was terminated. And the reality is they were not terminated. They were laid off from a company. That is not what they mean when they say terminated. So if you feel like you're not sure what to answer in this one, go off and watch that video. I promise you, I explain it soup to nuts for you. Okay, but when they're looking for the gaps on the resume, they are trying to get a sense of what you did. Now, holy cannoli, we have been through, unreasonable times as of late. And if anybody's asking you about a recent gap, hopefully they know what's been going on with the world. It is still okay for them to ask that question, but they should be asking or realizing that the world changed and this is not normal times. So it is okay to have a gap. If you have one, the same way we tell you with our advice on the resume, you need to make sure you're focusing quickly on, well, I was off for 9-12 months because of COVID. And during that time, I worked hard to make sure I stayed in alignment with my industry, with my profession. I took the following training. Get them off the idea of the gap quickly by focusing in on what you did during that time. Now, the second question that we did say that we had is, why did you leave each of your last positions? It's the same type of question. They're looking for, did you leave because you had to leave? Did you leave because you were unhappy with them? Did you leave because you were terminated? Or did you leave to better your career and better your profession? That's what they're trying to get to. What was your motivation for leaving? Which is shown even more about, tell me about how you have moved from position to position over the course of your career. You can either move like, a leaf in the wind, or you can move with a vision. Well, I wanted to be a little bit more experienced in this, so I took this company with this. And then I was looking to move into a supervisory role, so I took this position with this. That's when they're wanting to know your story. And the more that you can tell them about that, the better you will be. Okay, let's go to our next question. Why are you looking for another job? Which is similar to the question that we saw come up of, why do you want to move here as opposed to staying with your current firm? Now, I never recommend you saying an answer like, well, I'm looking for more money. Even if that is the case, that should not be enough. I don't want you to ever lie in an interview. It's the same with a resume as an interview. You always need to be truthful and honest, but you also need to make sure, while a resume shows the best parts of you, your interview should show the best parts of you as well. So why do you want to move here as opposed to staying with your current firm? Oops, sorry. The reason that you need to be focused in on is going to be something that's not going to undermine your candidacy. So be careful on how you answer this. Okay, so this, again, the next one is, why did you apply to this position? Again, sometimes they're looking, are you running away from something and trying to find out? Other times they're just trying to gauge your motivation. Was this position exciting to you because it was a bigger company? Was it exciting to you because it was a smaller company? They're wanting to understand your overarching motivation. Okay, I want to cover another question that did come up from some of the HR people, which is, what is your availability to start? Now, there are times when, and I'm going to talk more US specific for this. In the US, the normal standard is you give 2 weeks notice. Now, there are some special cases where that may be a longer time frame. But in general, companies are not very patient to wait more than 2 weeks after you give your notice. So if it is something that is very important to you, I understand your desire to keep your company that you're currently with going and such. But what I really recommend is try to do that 2-week availability if you can. If you cannot, make sure you bring it up when the offer is made and accepted that you would like, and then have a negotiation about it. Now, when they're asking what is your availability to start, most times it's because they need you yesterday. And they have a huge gaping hole or a project they're worried that's going to fall down. So if they are asking you this question, I find a lot of time it is because they are concerned about something they're doing and they want you to start sooner rather than later. So keep that in mind as you're answering this question. All right, we have tons more questions coming out for you to go through. Remember, practice makes perfect. Take the time, spend 10, 15 minutes of your day, listen to the questions, think about them, so you're not surprised when you get to that interview. It will make a difference. All right, job seekers, as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.